Welcome to the Pam Goodwin Show. I am thrilled and so excited to have our next guest all the way from Tennessee, Christy Adams. Hello, Christy.
Hi, Pam. Thank you for having me.
I cannot believe you're here. It's so interesting how we met on a Facebook Christian group for women going through breast cancer. How long ago was that?
Last year, probably maybe March 2020.
Wow, so a year,
Yeah.
and here you are today in Dallas, Texas, your first time to Texas.
Yeah, my first time flying alone too.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's my first time flying alone. My son usually goes with me where I go, but he couldn't come this time, so I had to make friends with the lady in the seat next to me really quick. So.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Well, thank you so much for coming out here and sharing your story. I know, we both have been going through breast cancer and both conquerors. And I think the interesting part is that I am, I didn't realize going through breast cancer that there's so many different kinds of breast cancer and that we're completely different, but we ended up on the Christian breast cancer Facebook group.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had triple negative, you had triple positive. So we're on opposite ends, but we became friends, and it's just really neat. So how breast cancer can, unfortunately, it's a group that nobody wants to be part of, but we bonded over that, that unfortunate event. So
I know, and I loved watching your videos, but I'd love to know, I watched all of your videos on the Facebook group, but I would love for you to, share the audience. Where did you grow up with I love your accent.
Thank you. I grew up in West Virginia, southern West Virginia, right on the border of Kentucky. If you've ever heard of the Hatfields and McCoys, right there in that town, a little town called Matewan, that's where it all started and it all ended. So, yeah, right on the river. I grew up right on the river in southern West Virginia, and that's where the accent comes from. I'm from a holler, if you ever heard of a holler.
What's that?
A holler is probably a hollow, but we call it a holler.
Okay.
It's just a little dirt road that goes between two mountains, and that's, it's just way up, like they can go on for miles, and that's up a holler. So.
How many people did you grow up with in your town?
Oh, gosh, in my town there's probably 400 in the whole town. I mean, in my graduating class, I think we had maybe 15. I don't know. Yeah, it's very small. So, yeah, very, very tiny little town. There's not a stoplight. There's no banks. There's one stop sign. There is a liquor store and a few churches, and that's about it. So,
I love that. I know we were briefly talking, but you live close by now where you used to work at Dollywood.
Yeah, so I moved to Tennessee on January 2nd, 2018, and I started working at Dollywood in March of that year. So that was always a dream.
How was that, working for Dollywood?
It was awesome. I had been taking my son since he was 3. And so, of course, I loved Dollywood. I always called it my happy place. And so when I moved to Tennessee, I was like, no matter what I end up doing with my life, I want to work at Dollywood even for a short time, because it's just, I don't know, I can't explain it until you have been there, until you work there. It's just, it's Dolly. And everybody who knows Dolly knows what she's about, and that's what the park is about. And it all trickles down from the top. So she's kind and just full of love, and that whole park was the same way. So it was a pretty awesome experience working there.
I know. I think I saw a T-shirt the other day that said "Dolly for President."
Yeah, absolutely. I'll vote for her.
So while you were working at Dollywood, did you have the chance to meet her in person?
I did. A couple of times she would come and a couple of times a year, she would come and take what we call host pictures, because all the employees there are called hosts. And so she would come and take her picture. She would spend all day long. And there's close to 4,000 people that actually work on the park alone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so she would take all day long, and just, we would have groups of like 10 to 15 people, and we would line up, and she would get in the middle of us. And occasionally, if somebody started a conversation with her, or if she started talking, she would interact with us, but she would shake our hands if we wanted to. And so that was, it was pretty neat. And she's a really, really sweet lady, really kind. The Dolly that you see on TV is the Dolly that you see in person. So,
Is there anything about her that you think would surprise the audience
Oh
or
gosh,
anything?
I don't know.
I mean, is she as tiny and as little as you?
Yes,
I mean,
she's
I heard
like
she's like, what, 5 foot, just
she's
two, or pretty tiny?
she is very short, but she wears the stiletto heels still yet, even at 75. She still wears the stiletto heels. She is so tiny. She looks like, I think she looks like you could just kind of pick her up and put her on your shoulder. She's so little, you know, she's like a little doll. So, but as far as like anything that would surprise people, I don't think so. I think that most people know her generosity and her kindness. I don't know if people know what she has done for she's from Sevier County, Tennessee, a little town called Sevierville. And that is a huge tourist town now. But when Dolly grew up, it was very tiny, and she grew up a holler too,
Okay.
at Locust Ridge. And but after she became famous and started making money, she started giving back into the town. And so we have Dolly Parton Parkway. We have Dollywood Boulevard, Dollywood Parks and Lane, or Lane Park, whatever it is. Yeah, so there's all kinds of streets named after her. And then there's a lot of, we have the Dolly Parton Center for Women's Health, which is where I was first diagnosed with breast cancer at the breast center there. And she actually gave money for that entire building, and she funded it all.
Wow.
So, yeah. So,
Oh, wow, I had no idea she even did that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know she's involved in giving money, so there's actually a place for women for breast cancer that she...
For all women's health.
For all women's health,
Yeah,
okay.
you have gynecologist's office, you have the breast center, there's even physical therapy in there. I think that physical therapy places for both men and women, but the whole entire building is called Dolly Parton Center for Women's Health. So, and it's right in Sevier County, right in Sevierville, and it's right next to the hospital and right next to where I had my cancer treatment. So,
Wow, yeah, she's an amazing person.
She is,
How
yeah.
much she
She is.
donates,
yeah.
and how much she gives and all that.
Yeah, I think she gives more to that town than what is even like televised. I mean, they might televise it locally, but you know, she just gives and gives, and I don't think that's the one thing I don't think people really realize, just how much she has given back to that county in particular. So,
Wow, that's great. That sounds like a really fun place to work.
yeah, oh, it was really fun. Because the park, you had all the roller coasters, you had restaurants, you had shops, her museum, which is, listen, if you ever come to Tennessee, you have to go to Dollywood and go to her museum. Like the outfits from when she was on Porter Wagner's show.
Oh, wow.
Porter Wagner's outfits, they're behind glass, but I mean, that museum is pretty fantastic. So if you ever come, I'll take you there and take you around. But yeah, being on the park was like being in your own city. And I made so many friends there. And there's a train that goes through it, runs on coal, and it goes around the perimeter of the park, so people can ride that. So it's pretty neat. So it is like a little city, you know, and it just felt like home at work every day. I didn't feel like I was working. We had a good time. So
How fun. I need to make a visit out there.
yeah, you do.
And I'd love for you to tell how you were working in. Dolly to me is an incredible entrepreneur, and you were briefly mentioning how she has a furniture store that she created out there, and that you were selling some of the furniture.
Yeah, so in the park, there's all kinds of different stores. There's leather shop in Craftsman's Valley. So Craftsman's Valley has all your leather shop, your woodworking. I was down in, I forget what it's called now, but I was down like on Main Street. And so there was like a sweet shop, a bakery, candy shops, different things like that. And they had, it was a furniture store that started in 2018. And we sold farmhouse furniture, kind of like Chip and Joanna Gaines knockoff stuff, or look-alike. And it did really well, yeah. So I was working in there, and that's where I made a lot of friends, a lot of out-of-town friends. You know, people come from different states. I met a few people from Texas that would come up several times a year, and I made friends with them. And, you know, everybody loves farmhouse stuff, so yeah.
Oh, good, yeah. With Chip and Joanne, just hour and a half here in Waco, Texas.
Yeah.
So similar. Yeah. Well, how fun. Well, you know, when I come out to visit you, you'll have to give me a private tour of Dollywood and give me all the on the tips and all that. How fun. I'd like to go back on how we met through breast cancer and talking about that and what you're doing up to date. You know, we briefly talked about, we talked about that I triple positive, which means so many people when you're diagnosed with breast cancer I had no idea there were so many different kinds. So I'm estrogen positive, progesterone positive, and what they call HER2 positive. And then which is the opposite, the negative on all of them, which they always said, mine is one of the worst ones to have, and then they tell you yours.
Yeah, I think any kind of cancer's bad. I mean, I know mine was negative for all hormones. That's why I don't have to take hormones like you are taking the hormones for 5 years afterwards. I don't have to take any because mine was negative for all of it, and I'm really thankful for that, because I don't want to be on medicine for the rest of my life or for years. But yeah, so
on mine, I just went in for an annual mammogram. And so I'm on a mission now to make sure that all women go annually for their 3D mammogram, because mine would not have been picked up with a standard 2D mammogram.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was October of 2019. And then how did you find out yours? I think it's always interesting. People are always like, because women are always paranoid or nervous and do the self-exam and pray, don't find anything. And so people ask me, how did you find it? Mine was thank goodness I did the annual mammogram, but that time I was like about 2.5 years out, which was the longest I had been, because I was on a year program. And then thank goodness I, found it early. How did you find yours, if you don't mind sharing?
So I had mammograms regularly, and it never picked up anything. And in August of 2018, my chest was itching, so I just reached up to scratch my chest, and I felt a little jelly bean-sized lump. And it was hard, and I was like, of course I panicked. And I had literally just come from my annual gynecology appointment.
Oh, wow.
I had just gotten home and sat down, and I felt it, so I called back real quick, and I looked at the clock. It was 4:59, and I thought, they're not going to be there. They're not going to answer. Oh, my gosh. I'll have to worry with this all night. So somebody picked up. I told them what was going on. She said, come in first thing in the morning. I went in, and the doctor looked at it and said, this is probably just a fluid-filled cyst. We'll send you for a mammogram. So the mammogram showed it was a fluid-filled cyst, and so she said, don't worry about it. If it was to get bigger, then you can come back. We'll figure something out. So I went home, resumed life, working, going to school. And then in October of that year, it had grown to like a golf ball. So I thought, well, this isn't normal. So I had it checked again. Again, they were like, it's probably fluid-filled, but we'll do an ultrasound. So they did an ultrasound, and then they decided to aspirate it, which they drained it. They sent the fluid off to pathology, and it came back benign. They were like, this happens to women. It's pretty common to get fluid-filled cysts. If it gets bigger, come back. So over the course of the next year, I had it drained 6 times.
Oh, wow.
It kept coming back, but each time that it came back, it would get bigger and bigger, to where the last time they drained it, they drained 140 cc's of fluid off, which I don't know. At the time, I was like, the doctor told me, and I said, I don't know what that is. And he goes, it's almost a liter. So you know what
wow.
a liter of, yeah. And that was in my chest, and I was like, good grief. But all of those, none of those doctors even, they just kept draining it. And finally, the last doctor said, listen, you need to see a surgeon, because something's going on. And so I went and seen a surgeon. I kept putting that off too. And I finally saw a surgeon in February of 2020, and he did a lumpectomy and took the fluid, it was a fluid-filled cyst, but when he took the fluid-filled cyst off, he found the cancer hiding behind it.
Oh, wow.
So the cancer was sneaky. It was hiding on the chest wall. And so I'm just thankful that at the time the cyst was like it was aggravating to me. I was like, why does the cyst keep coming back? But the cyst was saying, hey, my body was saying, hey, listen, pay attention. Pay attention to what's going on. I'm little now. Okay, I'm going to grow and get your attention. Okay, I'm going to grow and get your attention. And finally, that's how they found it. So,
yeah, I think as women we have that intuition of something is going to happen. I remember after I finished my mammogram, they would always say to me, see you next year. This time they didn't say that. And I walked out to my car, and I was like, oh my gosh, they always say, see you next time. How come that lady didn't say it? Then your mind starts going, maybe she forgot. Maybe it's a new person. Maybe they don't say it anymore. And then all that And that was like at, I don't even know, 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. But by 1:30 that afternoon, I got a phone call that they had, noticed something to come back in. And then, your whole mind starts going as far as, oh my gosh. But I kind of had that gut intuition because breast cancer does run in my family. My grandmother had it on my mom's side. So I grew up with it. And then 3 of her sisters had breast cancer. So out of 6 sisters, 4 of them had it. And so ever since I was little, I always thought, okay, when is it my turn to get breast cancer? Probably from about 7th grade on. And now getting it in my, I had just turned 55 when I was diagnosed. And so it's a fear that all women have. But thank goodness for, now we both finished chemo. You had to go radiation. I didn't have to do radiation. And now, how are you feeling? How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
You look great.
Yeah,
your hair.
You. My hair's finally coming back in. Thank God. Thank God for that. But listen, it's totally different. I never had hair like this before. I'm thankful that I have hair, but I got it trimmed the other day, and my hairdresser was like, "This is the texture of your hair from now on," and she said your hair's going to be curly and wavy, and I was like, so now I have to learn how to deal with wavy hair. But yeah, breast cancer didn't run in my family on either side, and nobody had ever had breast cancer. So I think mine was environmental.
Did you have the BRCA test done?
I did. Negative. My BRCA test was negative.
So was mine, even though I had a family, and
wow,
it came back negative. So same thing. It must be, environmental.
Yeah. So, but yeah, but I'm doing great now. I'm through. Like I had 6 months of chemo, the mastectomy, 31 rounds of radiation. I finished that up January 18th of this year. Thank God.
Yeah.
And I feel like I felt like I could finally go back to life, because it's like you were living your life, but there was something, there was an obstacle that you had to deal with every day. There was just that little pesky little cancer that you had to deal with. And finally, once it was behind me, I'm like, now I can move forward, and life will never be the same as it was. It's different now, but I think I'm even more grateful for life now. So
yeah. So if you could put it in one word, how has it changed you? I know it's changed me. I know when I was diagnosed and I woke up, I just went outside. It was October, and it was just like, it's hard to describe, but everything was so much greener and the sky was so much brighter, and I loved October. And usually October would probably not be my favorite month because I always knew it was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But it has completely changed me. How has it changed you?
I'm glad you said that, because I was telling my friend last week when I went back home to West Virginia to visit, I told her, I said, now I notice every leaf on every tree. It's like you notice everything now. And I can't explain that either, but I'm glad you said that, because it's like the sky is bluer. I mean, I don't know, I'm sure other people who have had I don't want to say near death, but like, tragic things happen in life. I'm sure they know what we're talking about, but it's like you just pay attention to everything now. And just everything is just like brighter and more colorful, and I feel deeper, and so I'm glad you mentioned that. I thought I was the only one that felt that way.
I did too. I did too. I didn't know,
must be
people
universal.
realize that, yeah.
So.
Because now, with all the change of the hormones and everything going on, they talk about gaining weight, and besides the pandemic, gaining weight, and then I have to take a pill now for 5 years. Yeah. I walk, which has been so great for my mind, body, and soul and all that. But there's turtles that are in our local ponds in our neighborhood, and before that, we've lived in the neighborhood 17 years. I never noticed those turtles.
Oh, wow.
And now, I'm like looking at all of the beautiful nature, but the turtles, I have a life coach who helps me, and with my vision board, I'm like, why am I seeing these turtles? And she says it's longevity. Yeah. And I'm like, good. I'm like, I need longevity.
Yeah. I needed a couple turtles in my life, apparently.
So I know that, I was always a person of faith, raised Catholic and went to Catholic grade school, high school, and all of that. But once you're diagnosed, God really just completely stronger in my life. And I know it's changed, or not changed you, but has a big impact on you. And wanted to share with the audience a new book of yours that just came out, and called Cancer, God and Me, a testimony in his light of God saved me, how God saved me and from cancer. And your book just came out, and I've read the entire book, and I couldn't put it down. But I would love for you to, tell the audience what made you write this book.
Well, when I first was diagnosed, I needed to talk about it, and my mom passed away several years ago, and so did my grandmother, so I didn't really have anybody to talk to. I couldn't lay all that on my son. He's in his 20s. He's a young man. I just didn't want to lay it all on him. So what I did was I went to a local mall, and I stopped in the parking lot, and I propped my phone up on the steering wheel, and I started talking to my camera, and I made a video. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I thought maybe I'll just keep it for myself to watch later on. And I just started talking to my phone, and it was like I was putting all the feelings somewhere. I was letting it all out. It was very therapeutic for me. And then I found the breast cancer support group, and I thought I'll upload these videos to that support group and share with the women, and maybe it'll resonate with them. And then I thought, hey, I'll start a Facebook page called Cancer, God and Me. And the reason that I call it Cancer, God and Me, I've had a couple of people ask me why I put cancer first. It's not that I put cancer first before God. I always imagined cancer was on one side, I was on the other, and God was in between us, and he wasn't going to let cancer get me. And so that's why it's called Cancer, God and Me. And so I named the Facebook page that as well, and I started uploading those videos to that. And so to keep with the branding, I thought I'll call the book Cancer, God and Me and talk about that. So the book is really heavy on faith, and God is all laced throughout the book, because without him I could not have gone through this. I was a Christian before, but like you said, once you're diagnosed, it's like I just clung to him. I clung to his word. My favorite verse is Mark 5:34, where Jesus told the woman with the issue of blood, daughter, go thy way and be made whole, or thy faith has made thee whole. And so I felt like, as long as I clung to my faith, I felt like I was going to be made whole, and I was. So yeah, so that's how the book came to be.
Oh, yeah, it's a great book. And reading your book, what I found out, that your birthday is a day before mine.
Really? Well.
So mine's September 13th.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was neat. Besides, I just really, I marked some, a lot of stuff in here, but it just really tells your whole journey. And it's true how much God had an impact, because one of the hardest part going through cancer is, I don't think people realize, but I created an Excel spreadsheet on all of the appointments that I had. Oh, wow. And within that year, there must have been at least 60 different appointments, wow. From scans to results. And yeah, just praying to God for those results, which is beyond. And reading your book, I'm like, I could completely relate to that, because you have a fear of, finding the result. But then, I used to be afraid to, once I knew the doctor was going to be calling me back on a result, you would look at that number knowing it was the doctor. Yeah. And the fear that, it almost takes your breath away. Yeah. But I don't know, once I just told God that, having faith over fear, that I'm like, I'm taking every phone call, bring it on, bring it on. I just went in that power mode. But it was such a good book. I could not put it down, and there were so many things that I could completely relate to. And I think even if you don't go through cancer, that there's so many relatable things in your book.
Thank you. I think so too. I told a friend of mine, I said, I don't really feel, even though it's a book about breast cancer, I feel like it's a book about loss and recovery, how you can have a horrible situation in your life, whether it is cancer or whether it's a financial crisis, death of a loved one, or a divorce or whatever. And as long as you just lean on God and walk by faith, you can come through anything. And that's what I wanted the book to. That's what I wanted to relay through the book. It is about breast cancer, but it can be used in other situations as well. God is not just in cancer. He's everywhere. So
And you talk about the 5 different stages of going through something like this, which I think, like you mentioned, whatever you're going through, you know, you can completely relate to it, not just having to go through cancer, but any type that, you know, has helped a lot.
Yeah, the 5 stages of grief, I said at first, I felt like when I was first diagnosed, I felt like I sped through them really quick. And then it's almost like I backed up and went through them again because like I'm just a plow through kind of gal. I'm like, let's get this over. And I feel like I wanted to just, almost like I just went through them really quickly. And then as cancer slowed me down and I was at home, I couldn't get up out of the bed because of chemo, then I really went through them. You know, I really went through the grief, the anger, the denial at first, you know. I mean, when I found the lump, like I said, it took me from when the doctor finally said, hey, let's get you in there and get the surgeon to check you. I think that was November of 2019. I didn't even go to the surgeon until February of 2020. So I was in denial. I knew inside of me, I knew I had cancer. But you would think that you would run to the doctor and say, hey, I know I have cancer, get rid of it. But for some reason, I couldn't let myself believe it. So I was in a deep denial. And I go into that really, like, it deeply in the book. So even a friend of mine read it and she was like, wow, you really talk about denial a lot. And I was like, well, that was a big part of it for me in the beginning. It was like I could not, even though I knew it, I just couldn't bring myself to go to the surgeon. But once I did, you know, and I got on that journey, I was like, listen, this is it. Let's just go. So
that's why, well, yeah, the one thing is, especially during the pandemic now, is to make sure you go in and get all of those annual exams, because as we know, the earlier you find it, the quicker it is. Yeah. And so I know it's really important. Well, pick up Christy's book. It is well written, and well, definitely you can read it in one day because you don't want to put it down. So thank you for that. And I think another great thing that you're doing, it's amazing how just, you probably weren't planning on doing this, but you've also created this amazing foundation. And I love my new t-shirt, but you've created it Close to My Heart Breast Cancer Foundation. And so I love my new shirt. Tell us about your foundation.
Okay, so how that started was, no, I was not planning to start a foundation. I've never done anything like that in my life. How that came about was I was right in the middle of my own chemo, my own journey, and I feel like God put it on my heart to do that. And I was like, I'm in the middle of cancer myself. I don't, but I know God wasn't saying right then. So I said, Lord, let me put this on the back burner and I'll revisit it when I'm well enough to do it. And so in October, well, mid-September last year, I was like, okay, Lord, now if you really want me to do this, you know, I'll see what I can do. Because I wasn't sure, because like I said, I didn't know anything about starting a foundation. So I contacted a friend of mine who has Imagination Library, Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. He has a nonprofit organization in Virginia where he goes through her and does it. So I said, Kyle, I said, how do I start a nonprofit? So he sent me step by step all of it. So I was like, here we go. So I did everything he told me to do, and that's how it was born. I mean, you know, just from one idea. And so I just started asking for donations. I mean, I wasn't a bit shy about it. I mean, it was for a good cause. So I was like, hey, guys, you know, went on Facebook. I was like, hey, guys, started this foundation to help breast cancer patients. And what we do is we give essential items in care packages. So a lady can send me like just a request. She doesn't have to tell me any personal information. She doesn't have to tell me what stage, what kind of cancer she has, but just say, I need a care package. And so I ask for the address and I say, do you need a mastectomy shirt? And if so, what size? And then I send out the care package itself. If they need a mastectomy shirt, has the shirt, a mastectomy pillow, a lanyard to hold the drain tubes after surgery, a chemo cap, a mask, hand sanitizer, and then each one will be like, have different things in it depending on what people have donated. Like some have bath salts or like necklaces. You'd sent some necklaces, just things like that. But every package has also like a journal and an ink pen. So there's like certain items that every package has, but then there's those little extras as well that people donate that I send. And a blanket.
Nice.
Each patient gets a blanket because it gets
That's one of
cold, and
the- yeah.
when you're getting your chemo, you get cold. So I send a
Wow, they
a
get
big
all
tray.
that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So and it's all free. Nobody has to pay anything. Shipping is free. I mean, I don't ask anything from any recipient, but I do ask for donors. So.
And if people want to donate to your, where do they go? What's your website?
The website is Close to My Heart. Close to My Heart. Hold that shirt.
Yeah.
I still have
what's the
chemo
name
brain. I'm sorry.
Chemo brain.
Close to My Heart Foundation. I think. Yeah, Close to My Heart Foundation.weebly.com. So that's how they can donate, or they can go to Facebook and type in Close to My Heart Breast Cancer Foundation.
Okay.
So we have a page on there. And we take PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, or check or money order. All the information is on the website and the Facebook page too. But yeah, we take any donations. I mean, if they want to donate items, that's fine. Or if they want to donate money, that's fine too. So either way, just as long as I can get the stuff to the patients, it doesn't matter how it comes in. So.
Wow, that's great. That's a great thing. I know I received a few of those care packages, and it was so fun to, to get that. Well, not fun, but I mean, it was so helpful to get that information. What's your goal? How many women do you plan on serving?
Well, right now I have helped 71 women because I just sent another package out before I came down here. So I've helped 71 women since October of last year. Which is far more than what I figured I would, because I was thinking if I can help one woman a week. But, God's He's allowed me to help 71 so far. But like I told somebody, I want to help 1 million women. Like I just want to take this world, I want to go worldwide. Right now I can only ship in the U.S. because shipping is so expensive. But one of these days I want to be as big as Susan G. Komen Foundation. I really want to help women with everything. I want to be able to help financially with mortgages and rent, help with gas, or send Uber or DoorDash, send meals to women who can't, cook for themselves. Not everybody has a caregiver. Like I was blessed enough to have my son be my caregiver. And then eventually within maybe hopefully 5 years, I would love to have a branch of the foundation that just focuses on caregivers alone, because they put so much of themselves into, and I think the breast cancer patient gets all the attention, and I never wanted all the attention. I wanted people to say, hey, what can I do for your son? But they're forgotten. They're really the forgotten heroes. So I want to help them as well too. So
I love that. Yeah, the caregiver. I know my husband and sister and mom and good friends, everything that they've done. That I love that idea of paying them back some way too. Well, thanks for that's great on your foundation. We'll be sure to put it on all of the social media and make sure and hope to get some big fundraising so you can continue your foundation and doing more. I just have one more question. What else is on your bucket list?
Oh, you know what? I knew you were going to ask me that.
You did?
I did. But let's see. Gosh, I don't know. Well, that's a hard question. Personally, on my bucket list, I would love to go to Italy.
Oh, okay.
That's a big bucket. That'd take a big bucket. But as far as the foundation, like if I could choose anything, it would probably be to put the foundation first instead of myself, and it would be to be able to help more women, because that is the roughest thing I've ever gone through. And I know like you were talking, when you got care packages, it really does do something for you. You're so sad. You can't get out. You can't go out of your house. You're in the bed. You can't get out of the bed hardly because of chemo. And just for somebody to think about you and send you even a card. I mean, it didn't even have to be a gift. It was a card or a text, during that time when you're just hurting. I mean, that means everything. And so I get messages back, or I even get a couple of thank you cards, and people are like, thank you so much for the blanket. I took it to chemo, or thank you for this. And that just, I just want to do things to make somebody smile. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. I was just going to leave with one point. One thing I did learn is a couple different friends or people would, send me more than one card. And before, in the past, I would always just send the person one card. But I completely learned to send 1, 2, 3, 4 cards, throughout the whole year, plus that you're going through it, or 1 or 2 or 3 meals, not just one.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing what you can learn by doing something like this. So I'm so glad you could come to Dallas and
Yeah.
Texas and experience some of our culture while you're here. And I'm so glad that after seeing all of your posts and everything on Facebook that we could really meet in person and talk, and you could come and be on the show today.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks again for watching the Pam Goodwin Show. Please subscribe to watch more content just like this.